On this week's episode of the WNP podcast, the draft is finally here. Stay tuned. Episode 187 of the WNP podcast. I'm your host, Mike Mitchelson, and joining me today, as always, my co-host, Chase Crawshaw. Chase, how are you on this fine Wednesday evening?
I am doing swell. Thank you for asking. The big day is tomorrow. I'm super juiced. Well, by the time you're hearing this, the big day is today. So it's been a long time coming. It's been a grind of an off season, but man, I'm super excited to watch the Lions trade down at their home draft. I'm so excited.
Oh, that would suck. And by the way,
Dude,
it's I don't think the draft is like copyrighted. You don't got to say the big day, kind of like the big game. Got to say the big game, but
yeah, okay, that's fair. Well, the 2024 NFL draft
we're
is
sponsored,
tomorrow.
by the way. Sponsored by the NFL draft.
Yeah. Hashtag is a sponsor.
Yep.
Yeah, but dude, really, it's like we can talk about it like a little bit more or whatever if we want. But like I might as well say it since we're mentioning it. I really don't think it's that impossible of something that could happen if the cornerbacks. I really think cornerbacks kind of the target of it at this point now with Sutton out the door. So if the cornerbacks that they like kind of go off the board as early as I think they have a chance to, they might just say, yeah, we'll just punt until tomorrow and they trade down, which would just be heartbreaking. It'd be so heartbreaking.
I don't think they can do that to their fans, though. Like,
I hope not. Like at the end of the day, if it's the right decision, then it's the right decision. It would suck because like I love seeing draft picks and I like seeing first round draft picks. It's exciting. But if it's truly the right decision, then like it is what it is, I guess.
So you'd rather them trade down than take a reach, like taking I don't know, like a Jack Campbell in the first round.
I know. I really like when they make good picks. That was a good one.
All right. Well, on today's episode, we are going to be talking some news around the league. We are going to be looking at the 4 new jerseys that have been released and going to be ranking those. We're also going to be talking about some big extensions that happened in Detroit. We're going to talk a little bit about Cincinnati because yet another player has requested a trade out of the Queen City. And then, of course, going to get into our mock draft. And, Chase, before we get into the mock draft, we'll do a little preview of kind of the draft as a whole. So this might be a longer episode. Strap in. We're going to have a lot of fun this show. But I know we talked about originally doing a My Guys. Spoiler, I am not as big of a fan on this draft as a lot of other people and consensus. So My Guys, it was very tough for me. So we decided to scratch the whole episode as a whole, and before we get into the draft, we can kind of mention a couple of guys that are on Chase's My Guys list, and then maybe 1 or 2 on my list. But regardless, let's hop right into the episode because we know it's going to be a long one. New jersey rankings, not the state, but the actual uniforms that teams are going to be wearing. We got the Lions, Broncos, Texans, and Jets. They've all released their new unis. What do you think, Chase? Give me a little ranking. Let's go 4-1 here.
I mean, that's kind of tough to say which one is 4 actually, because I think both the I think the Broncos were like I've seen worse. They were boring. Yeah, actually, it's not as tough as I thought it was going to be. So I just want to make sure I'm not missing a team here. It's the Lions, it's the Texans, it's the Broncos, it's the Jets, correct?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. So 4th is the Texans. I mean, I like the whites. I still hate the font, but like the white actually, it pops pretty good with the colors they have. Everything else looks horrible. Like you can't read the names, like the name bars on any of the jerseys. The font is ugly. The jerseys just don't look good. I hate their color scheme. I wish they would just go back to the Oilers colors. So like Texans take another L. It's a shame that CJ Stroud, a quarterback that I really like, is going to have to wear those atrocious uniforms for at least the next 5 years. Number 3, I would say the Broncos just because I just think it's a lot of like missed opportunity. Like it's kind of bland. Like nothing really super exciting. They could have gotten a little creative, or at least they did bring back their their like classic jerseys that kind of as an alternate. And I love those jerseys. I think those are really good. But I would have, honestly preferred if they just kind of made that like just kind of made that like their full time jersey brand and like did a home and away for that, based on kind of what they did at this point. It's just like I saw some kind of mock ups online. I saw one that I really liked where like the sleeve as it looks right now kind of looks like the Chargers sleeve almost, like the way it's kind of like jagged and like like that kind of design. I saw one where they did like the mountains instead, kind of just Colorado, the Rockies. Like it looked way better. So I wish they did that, but they didn't. Then number two, the Jets. They they're better. I think overall, like I don't think they're just some absolute home run hitter. But I think they improve. And then obviously, I mean, number one, the Detroit Lions. They slam dunk. They killed it. I mean, they brought back that kind of the old vintage look. The prime Barry Sanders jerseys with a little bit of a modern twist. Exactly what Rod Wood said it was going to be, and they did a great job. I'm generally not a fan of like I'd say not a fan of white jerseys, but white jerseys usually rank lower down on my list. But I mean, the Lions white, it looks really good with these jerseys. The blacks are awesome. I'm so happy those are back. The one complaint I am going to have though is when they did the reveal, the blue jerseys, it looked like it was, white font for the numbers and the names. But now, if like seeing like pictures of, like not having the super, just like high profile lighting on it, just kind of standard lighting, the name's actually like silver kind of, and I don't like that. Like I much prefer having the name match the primary color of the numbers. So that part kind of bugs me, but all in all, still looks very, very nice. Like everywhere else, I'm very happy with the rebranding.
Yeah, and I'm gonna agree with you on most of that list. And I think if you're just looking at like best looking jerseys, that's probably the ranking. But I'm actually gonna punish the Jets a little bit, put them at 4, just because obviously they got everyone excited. Ooh, New Jersey reveal, and then all they did was put a different color collar on the jerseys that they've been wearing over the last 3 years. Like I did not see much of a change. I like the Jets jerseys last year, and I like them again this year. So I think they look great, but they didn't change very much. So that's why I'm gonna drop them down to 4. But then agreed, Texans, I think they look the worst. I don't like the horns on the shoulders. Wish they did something a little different, whether it be a stripe or something. And you mentioned the Houston Oilers, wishing they'd go back to those colors. They kind of tried to implement them in their alternate, but it looks terrible. I
Looks
hate
horrible.
I hate the light blue and red that we get on top of the really, really dark blue, and I'm just not a fan of the helmet either, so pass on those. Similar thoughts when it comes to the Broncos. I mean, that, what is it, vintage, alternate, whatever it is.
Classic.
The classic looks great when it comes to their other jerseys. I mean, they're just meh. And then the Lions looks great. I thought for sure the black was going to be my favorite coming into the reveal. I mean, obviously we didn't know there was going to be a black, but I think a lot of us had a good sense that there would be a black jersey, and I figured it would be my favorite. I think it's actually my least favorite, and it's still great. So that kind of just tells you on my thoughts on the Lions jerseys overall.
Yeah, I mean, like they did a really good job. It really like what like teams come up with new jerseys as just a ploy to like, yeah, buy our new jerseys. But the last Lions jerseys thought were downgrade from their previous branding. Like the kind of prime Safford jerseys where like they had the white font with the black outlining. Like I really like those jerseys. I thought they popped very well. And then these last ones with like it was just kind of blue and silver. And like I still like the blue and silver. Like I love the Lions color scheme, but it was just missing an extra element. And now these new ones they added that extra element, and it just the blue is slightly different. It looks a lot better, and the whole jersey just pops. Like the design is just so much better. It's just they really did a fantastic job.
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to stick with Detroit here for a second before we move on and talk about their big extensions. I want to talk about the coach because we've got a quote here from Dan Campbell, came out earlier today. As long as there's beer, I would never get bored with golf, and that is a true man's man right there. Are you kidding me? Golf, a great game, beer, a great bev, and having them together, oh, fantastic.
So I didn't like see if like I mean obviously some sort of interview or whatever. I didn't see the interview. I just saw the quote kind of like out of like randomly out of context. And it's just so funny. It's just so random. I need to go check out what the actual context is. But like 100%, I mean, it is, two of the great things in America are just beer and golf. So like he, Coach 100% knocked that one out of the park.
Absolutely. And speaking of knocking out of the park, the Lions extend probably their two best players on the team. If not, definitely two of their top three.
It's their two best players. I mean, Amon-Ra's a top 5 receiver in the league. I think Penei Sewell is at worst a top 3 offensive lineman in the league. Could argue putting up higher as well. So 100%, they're two best players. And right, they rightfully so got paid. It's crazy nowadays though to kind of see that a receiver is getting $30 million a year and offensive lineman getting $28 million a year. They're guys that I think that are worth it, especially given what the market is. Like I'm kind of about as you just can't let them go basically no matter what. So I'm very happy that they got those extensions, but it's just kind of crazy to think that like there are guys that are not quarterbacks getting paid that much. But again, I am very happy that they're going to be around for quite some time still.
Yeah, another 4 years on top of whatever they have left currently on their contracts. I know ARSB, the new highest paid wide receiver. I didn't look in depth enough. I'm assuming Penei is the new number 1 paid offensive tackle.
Yeah. He is.
Absolute dogs. I'm glad they got their money. Obviously, big pieces here in Detroit. Not that I'm a Detroit fan by any means, but the city of Detroit needs a little love, a little success, and to have these two guys headline their team for another 4 or 5 years to come is going to be absolutely huge for the city. So super happy for the Lions and Lions fans out there, but now we got to get into some sad news with my Cincinnati Bengals.
Just huge L, Mike. Big L. The Lions are up and the Bengals are down.
Yeah, honestly, there was a thought going through my head today on the way home thinking, if we are like losing players like this, obviously we lost Jesse Bates last year to free agency, DJ Reader this year to free agency. We got 2 of our star players demanding trades. And if Joe Burrow can't stay healthy, we might quickly find ourselves back in the same position we've been over the last couple of decades, which would absolutely kill me. But let's get into the talk and why we're bringing this up. And that's because, well, first, if you've been living under a rock, T. Higgins requested a trade about a month, maybe 2 months ago now. He wasn't happy with where contract negotiations were going. And I know there was talk that the Bengals just hadn't talked to him since the season ended. From inside sources, that's not the case. T. Higgins and his agent, they had a number that the Bengals needed to get to, or else, there would be no negotiations. The Bengals tried to reach out and tried to have negotiations, but they were never at that number. And so, according to the agent, there was never serious talks. And then today, oh boy, Trey Hendrickson, absolute star pass rusher. He was top 3 in sacks last year. He demands a trade, which I think is absolutely insane. Because let me pull up the clause real quick. Let me pull up the clause. But the NFL and in their rules, Section 8AI, renegotiations and extensions of the CBA. Trey Hendrickson can't get a new contract until 12 months from the date he signed an extension. People, Trey Hendrickson signed an extension last year, July 27th, 2023. So it's not even possible to sign a new extension or sign a new contract until July 27th, 2024. So why is he coming out now demanding a trade, saying it's because of long-term security? Like, I don't get it. He's got another 2 years on his deal. I think it's pretty frustrating. It makes me think that there's something else going on in the room or his agent's getting in his head, because the rules state you literally can't get another contract until July 27th. So I'm pretty frustrated about that, but kind of wanted to voice my opinions on the Bengals as a whole. First up, I'll go, what do I think is going to happen with these two? They're going to be on the team next year. The Bengals don't trade their good players, especially if they're under contract. T. Higgins under contract for 1 more year. Trey Hendrickson under contract for 2 more years. I don't see a world where they trade them. If they do, I think it would be very exciting, but I don't see it happening. I think T. Higgins is the most expendable out of the two. I think Trey Hendrickson needs to stay, but there's my thoughts on that. And then finally, before I let you chime in, Chase, kind of wanted to talk about the Bengals and their philosophy on re-signing players. They hate giving out guaranteed money. and that obviously goes back to ownership. Mike Brown, he was there. He's been the owner for a long time, I think since my existence, and he obviously has been very Scrooge-esque and not wanting to give out any guaranteed money. The only time he does give out guaranteed money is to his franchise quarterback. We saw that with Carson Palmer, with Andy Dalton, and then, of course, most recently with Joe Burrow. But not giving out guaranteed contracts doesn't really work in the NFL nowadays. There's only 4 teams that aren't very fond of giving out guaranteed money, and some of them are coming around, but the 4 are the Steelers, Cardinals, Raiders, and Bengals. All of them not big fans of giving out that guaranteed money. And when was the last time any of them have had Super Bowl success? It's been a little while. The game's changing. The front offices need to as well.
Yeah, ultimately what this comes down to is the players have too much power now in order for for a front office, for an owner to try to kind of hold this leverage over them. With the media presence that's around the NFL, it's around professional sports in general. It lets players kind of be a lot more public about their thoughts, their opinions, and just kind of like, the contract talks, obviously all that becomes more popular. So it becomes pretty clear that, if a player is frustrated, why they're frustrated. And, back in the 70s, you might never even find out. But now, since it's so accessible, like they're going to find out. And because of that, teams need to adapt, and a lot of teams have been adapting. The guaranteed money is just becoming a very big thing. And if you're not going to give guaranteed money, those guys are going to let their frustrations be known, and it's just going to make fans, potentially get mad at ownership, might turn on them a little bit. Who knows? So owners, their hands are kind of tied nowadays. They kind of have to just accept that's where things are going and be willing to give out that money. So it sucks for the Bengals. I mean, those are two players that they help a football team win, that's for sure. So, them not kind of maybe giving their all or 100%, or maybe they don't even show up to, to team events, whatever it's going to be, like it hurts the Bengals. It absolutely does. So they need to either, fork up, that guaranteed money, or they need to move on from them. And honestly, what I would kind of like to see today, like tomorrow, I guess today upon you listening, is maybe the Bengals make a little trade for T. Higgins and they draft a receiver. I know there might be some other needs, but still, I mean, let's get Joe Burrow those weapons. Let's get that offense rolling. T. Higgins doesn't want to be there, then smell you later. Let's get a receiver in the door, maybe get some draft compensation. That'd be a fun way to have the NFL draft go, because I don't know what other players could potentially be moved other than him. And then I'm kind of in the same boat with you when it comes to Trey Hendrickson. I don't think he's going to get traded at all. I think if anybody's getting traded, it would be T. Higgins, but I think Henderson's kind of there to stay until that contract runs up, and then we'll cross that bridge when they get there. But it does suck for you. Like it does suck for Bengals fans, because those are 2 very talented players to kind of have those public frustrations. I mean, it just throws a wrench into your things a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it'd be a lot of fun to see T. Higgins get traded tomorrow and see the Bengals potentially move back into round 1, or if they get the 33rd or something from Carolina instead. I'd be okay with that as well. But T. Higgins getting traded, not off my bingo card. But I think the one thing that I was thinking about and kind of hurts is, before DJ Reader's status was known, and when T. Higgins initially came out and demanded that trade, there's a lot of talk about he's asking to be paid like an A player, where I think me and some Bengals insiders that I follow, we see him more as a B-plus player, which B-plus players are great, obviously, but you're not going to pay him that top dollar bill. The problem is when you start losing all your B-plus players. If you lose 1 or 2, not a big deal, but when you lose Jesse Bates, when you lose T. Higgins, when you lose DJ Reader, and now potentially Trey Hendrickson, your 2 A players, your 7 B-plus players, and then your, rest of B- and lower is now looking like 2 A players, 2 B-plus players, and then a lot of unknown. So that hurts a little bit, and I'm hopeful that they can figure it out, that front office. Trey Hendrickson, I think, is being silly because he can't get a new extension until July. And if T. Higgins gets traded, then I think it would be a more exciting draft experience. So that's kind of it for my thoughts. Chase, why don't we talk about the draft and the class overall? Give me your thoughts on do you think the class is as strong as consensus seems to believe? And then how about a couple of my guys as well?
So some of the classes as strong as consensus believes, but here's the thing: I normally have anywhere. I usually end up having like 35 guys that I would take. Like
Yes.
I have first round grades that I would take first round. It's
Yep.
that kind of thing. It's usually how it works out. But this year I'm currently sitting at 29 guys the first round grades.
Yeah,
So
I'm at 27, so very similar boats.
yeah, yeah. So in my opinion, like there's a couple guys that are really strong up high, and then it kind of fizzles out. I've got a lot of guys that I think are worth day two picks, like very much so, and then a couple of guys are going to have to go in the first round based on my Grady system. But I think it does thin out a little bit. But when you're talking about the quarterback group, you're talking about the receiver group, and you're talking about the especially the higher end corners, like all those things they're very strong. And but like kind of outside of that, it fizzles out a bit. I take that back. Offensive line, especially offensive tackle as well, is pretty good overall too. But the edge rushers, there's some talented edge rushers, but I think it kind of starts tapering off as you get lower down. Tight ends, there's like maybe three guys that I think are like dogs. When you're looking at running backs, there's nobody that I think should sniff the first round. Like safeties, I think some good safeties, but there's not like any greater elite. Linebackers, kind of the same thing, just drops off so heavy. So just kind of like just kind of all the way down the board. Like there's some very good talent up top. There's three guys I have worthy of taking first overall. There's eight guys that I would take in the top five, counting those three. But the fact that I only have 29 first round the rest of the way, it just shows how top heavy it is. So at the end of the day, there's always guys that go the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round that are going to end up being studs. But it just the way things look right now, I just don't know which guys those are going to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm like right there with you. I got three guys that stand a little bit above the rest, and could be worth that. How my grading system goes, it's top five players versus the first overall pick. So I got three guys in that range, and then Romo Dunze is just slightly out of it, but he's my fourth player. Obviously, a fantastic player. And when you only have 27 guys in your first round, it's not the most exciting. And that's kind of where I don't have a ton of my guys. And the my guys that I do have are kind of cookie cutter. I can't lie. But when I think of my guys, it's players that I love to watch. It's players that I have full confidence they're going to be superstars at the next level. And so when I have very cookie cutter, no one really wants to listen to that. So very briefly, I'll just name three guys that I think are going to be superstars. I'm not really going to go much into them because everyone knows who they are. And then, Chase, we can kind of talk about York players and where we think they're going to be. But my three players, Jackson Powers Johnson. I mean, I think that guy is an absolute superstar on the inside. I think he's going to be one of the best centers in the league. Romo Dunze, obviously, huge fan of him. And then Byron Murphy out of Texas, the D tackle. So all guys that I think are going to be going top 25 in this draft, and for good reason. Those are my guys.
Yeah, and those are all guys that I'm very big on as well. So I can definitely vibe with it. In terms of my guys, I normally try to get 10. I ended up with 7 this year. I can mention who the 7 are, but like there's a couple more I prefer to talk about. But the 7 that kind of I'll just throw out real quick. Michael Penix out of Washington, obviously Tyler Swag out of Oregon State, Braylon Allen out of Wisconsin, Land McConkey out of Georgia, Adisa Isaac out of Penn State, Austin Booker out of Kansas, and then Mike Sanderson out of Michigan. But kind of wanted we just recently talked about cornerback, so I won't bring up Sanders still. I kind of gave my speech on him in our last episode, but I do want to sing Michael Penix's praise even more because he does come out as a very high graded player for me, 12th in the draft class. I'm a very firm believer in his ability. I really do think he's going to come in and be a career NFL starter, somebody that you can win a Super Bowl with. Is he going to be a top 3 quarterback in the league? Probably not. I don't see that upside, but like I don't see how he's especially being healthy. I don't see how he's not a top 10 quarterback year in and year out for a long time. So some talk about him being a potential second round pick. I saw some stuff about him being a third round pick for some reason, which I think that's just absolute blasphemy. I think that whoever, if he does fall, somebody's getting the value of a lifetime, because I would slam not take him in the first round. Depending how the quarterback draft falls, kind of like plays out. Like, if I'm a team like the Broncos or the Vikings, I have no problem taking him with my pick. I really don't, because I just think he's that dude. Then we'll move on to Tyler Swaga, who I've sung his praise a lot. We were just on the locker room pod, just on Monday, and kind of talk about him more there too. He's my number 2 offensive tackle, somebody I would take with a top 5 pick. I think he just, Joe Walt is kind of like the Quentin Nelson of this draft class, where like he's just guaranteed to be a stud. Where I think Tyler Swaga has just basically unlimited upside. I think he can, become one of those best tackles in the league. So I think whoever gets him gets a crazy value. And then I guess since it's been a long time since we talked about this dude as well, I'll bring up Braylon Allen. He's not going to get any first round conversation, like rightfully so. I don't think he should, but I've been seeing things. He should be a 3rd, 4th, 5th rounder, and if he falls to the 3rd, like, I won't be super angry, but I think it'd be great value. If he falls at A3, I think that's just a horrible mistake. I have him as my running back too, somebody I would safely take in the 2nd round, and it's just because he's just. I know this year was a bit down in production, and everyone wanted to see a step up, but it's kind of like Kool-Aid McKinstry. He came in as a young player, and he dominated from the beginning. He started for a Big Ten, powerhouse, and at the end of the day, like, Wisconsin might not necessarily beat Michigan, but they're constantly a staple of being one of the better teams in the country every single year. And he came in as a freshman, and he pounded the rock, game after game, week after week. And this last year was a little bit disappointing for sure, but I saw too much talent as a 17-year-old for me to think that he's bad and that it's washed. So I think the hate on him is just kind of unjust, and I think he's going to end up being a really good NFL running back. So those are the 3 guys that have been the longest since we talked about them, and also probably are my 3 highest my guys anyway.
There you go. And obviously, big fan of Fuaga as well. Michael Penix, I agree with you. I think him and Bo Nix. I've been seeing Bo Nix more head to that day 2 selection area. I love both of them. I think both should be first-round picks, and both of them have so much football played. So, I mean, I think they're just incredibly smart, and they have a lot of gifts as well. And then Braylon Allen, I'm not as high on you or as high on him as you are. I think if I was actually making a prediction, I'm guessing he's probably end of round 3, early round 4. But, I mean, this kid's only 20 years old. He's got a lot of upside. He's got the size. He's got decent speed to go with his size. So to say that he could potentially be a top 10 back in the future, it wouldn't shock me. So there you go. Chase is my guys. And Chase did mention the Locker Room Pod. We were on there for a mock draft. And if you haven't watched that, or if you're fiending for more mock draft content, make sure to head over to the Locker Room Podcast. You can hear our selections over there. But Chase, it's been enough time talking before actually entering the mock. So we've got a wheel here. We decided to change it up a little bit.
Oh boy.
We weren't going to spoil who was picking where. We're going to do this all off the cuff. So here we go. Spinning the wheel. And this will decide what evens or odds. What do we want the wheel to decide?
The wheel's going to decide odds. It's odds is the first overall pick.
All right, here we go. The little wheel. You heard that last little tick, right? And that changed it. That changed it from the first overall pick going to you over to me.
How are you feeling about that? Who's he gonna go with?
I feel like it's pretty obvious. And did you have a lot of evens in the Locker Room Podcast? Or no?
No.
Okay, we'll keep it as is then, because I'm like, I felt like I had a lot of odds, and but
because I had the Patriots, I had the Titans, I had the Vikings. Those are guys were 3, 7, and 11. Yeah, so I had mostly odds.
Okay, very cool. Well, hey, first overall pick, the Chicago Bears on the clock. I'm gonna take the Prince of the NFL draft. Saw that today, Caleb Williams being compared to Prince. Interesting. But Caleb Williams, easily the best player in the draft, in my opinion. I've got him and then Marvin Harrison and another quarterback sitting in my top 3 spots. I think Caleb Williams is just better than the other two. I think he's the best player in the class.
Yeah, and I said it on the other podcast we did earlier in the week with the Locker Room Pod. A very similar boat, but I do have Marvin Harrison as the number 1 player in my draft class. So Caleb Williams comes in at number 2. It's a close battle, but we'll talk about Marv when his pick comes.
Yep.
But Caleb Williams, I think, is about as sure of a thing as you can get for a quarterback. There's always that bust potential. Like you can kind of look at Trevor Lawrence, not that he's necessarily a bust, but still hasn't lived up to the what was expected. So there's always a chance that things go wrong, but he's going to a really good situation in Chicago. Like the offensive line is solid enough, and there's talent at receiver, there's talent at tight end, there's talent at running back. He's got all the assets to have a lot of success in that offense. So there's not really going to be a ton of excuse for him to fail.
Yeah, it's just going to be a little tough for a Lions fan having to see the first overall pick over there and potentially the 9th overall pick, whoever that may be. The Bears have definitely loaded up a little bit here, and the Packers, obviously with Jordan Love. I know you mentioned over on the other show that why is it the Lions, as they're at their peak, as they are, finally striding forward, the division is starting to get good as well.
Yeah, Jordan Love has a big breakout year. Caleb Williams is going to the Chicago Bears, and we'll see what the Vikings do. But if the Vikings end up trading up, or if they grab Michael Penix or something, I'm going to be livid. And I certainly think it's possible.
Yeah.
So, this sucks.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, well, Washington Commanders, they're on the clock. Who we got?
So, we're just confirming this is what I would do, correct?
So, yeah, kind of. But also, I think with my next pick of the Patriots, I think I'm going to do kind of what I think might happen as well. I don't know. I'm trying to toe the line a little bit.
Okay, so I'll do a little bit of both. It's going to be a quarterback at this pick, so I might as well just do who I would prefer over the two. And I think you could go either way, and it would be fine. You just got to make sure that you give either one of these guys as much opportunities to succeed as possible. And I'm going to go with Jaden Daniels, my number 2 ranked quarterback, my number 4 ranked player in the draft class. Yeah, someone that he really grew on me. I loved his tape. I thought he was my number 3 quarterback, still a guy that I had ranked as a top 5 player in the class. But I went back, I watched him more, and I just see a lot of things that I really like. Like he really does remind me of in terms of his running ability, kind of like a mix of like Cam Newton, Lamar Jackson. He looks so dynamic running the ball. The arm strength might not be anything elite, but he plays it really well. He's got nice touch. I think he reads the field pretty well. I think he's got so much upside. The only other person with more upside at quarterback in this class is Caleb Williams. But I see Jaden Daniels as someone that, if things are right, I mean, he could be a top 5 quarterback in the league. This could be the RG3 that the Washington, now the Washington Commanders wish that they could have had a few years ago before the injury. I think they could be kind of getting, 2.0 of him, which would be a ton of fun for that organization.
Yeah, I love Jaden Daniels. He is my number 3 player in the class and my number 2 quarterback. Just so talented. And, you heard a lot, obviously, with it being a Heisman year last year. You heard about his passing, you heard about his running, and just the ability to create plays. But when you sit down and look at the way he actually processes the game, you can tell he's been in college football for 5 years. You can tell that he has the reps behind him, because when things go crazy, he's composed. He's ready to go, and I think that's going to be a great piece for Washington there.
Yeah, 100%. And even if they go with the other guy, I think they can still have success. But I just do hope they go with Jaden Daniels, because I'd rather see, compared to the guys with the top 3 picks, at least, presuming that they end up going quarterback number 3, the Patriots, I would much rather see him have success with Washington than with New England.
Yeah, 100% agree. All right, well, New England on the clock, and this is where I'm going to change it up a little bit, because when I think of the top 6 quarterbacks, what quarterback has been praised the most and what quarterback has been slandered the most throughout the process? I think J.J. McCarthy, he's had a crazy rise, whereas Drake May, he was undoubtedly the number 2 quarterback when we entered the process. Some even saying he could potentially be the number 1 quarterback because Caleb Williams fallen down the draft board a little bit. And then people actually watch film and they're like, oh yeah, it's Caleb Williams. He's not going to be the number 2 quarterback. And it seems like Drake May has started to fall down the board. So this isn't personally what I would do. I think it would be hilarious that the Patriots do it, but I'm going to go J.J. McCarthy at number 3.
This is fun. This would make draft day so much fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because chaos would ensue. First of all, the draft stage is gonna go crazy because it's a Michigan guy. Another Michigan quarterback going to the Patriots. But they'll go crazy seeing a Michigan guy go top 3, and it would be cool. It'd be cool for JJ because like it was fun. Being a fan of I don't have any dire allegiance towards Michigan or Michigan State, but I'm gonna root for whichever schools in Michigan are having. I want them all to have success. So it was a ton of fun watching Michigan go on and win a natty. It's JJ McCarthy's story is cool. He played hockey up until he was too good at football to play well sports, and he had to only play football. So knowing he's a hockey guy as well makes him a little more likable. It would be awesome to see him get this kind of draft stock. Now, do I think it's necessarily the right pick? Probably not. I think that there's higher upside and better quarterbacks, but I really don't think this is that impossible to kind of share some of my prop bets that I actually placed earlier, Mike. I placed a bunch.
Okay.
I did bet an exact draft order of 1, 2, 3 of Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, and JJ McCarthy.
There you go. That'd probably win you some good money.
Yeah, I think it came out to plus like 1,800 or something like that. So
Nice.
I put $10 on it, so it's $180 if it hits. So that'd be cool. But yeah, sorry, 190 after money back too. But yeah, I certainly don't think it's impossible with the amount of hype he's getting. I don't think it's impossible that he ends up going here. I think it would be a mistake because I think Drake May's ceiling is just higher. But you know what? Actually, as I'm talking here, I'm kind of talking myself into this a little bit more.
Okay.
Because I think if one quarterback of all the quarterbacks on the board, if one of them can go into a really bad situation and not be ruined, I think it's JJ McCarthy. Because like he played in a pro style offense at Michigan, like he's ready for the NFL, probably the most ready in terms of systematically. And if they got to go and they have to run the ball more, or he has to play a little bit hero ball, I don't think it's going to necessarily kill his confidence. Like he's going to lose more games than he did at Michigan. He only lost 1 there, so obviously he's going to. But it's not like Drake May, where he lost some games at UNC and he tried to play some hero ball, and hero ball had a lot of success, also had a lot of failure. I don't think JJ McCarthy is necessarily going to have to do that. He's young enough where he's going to have time to recoup. Like of the quarterbacks available, he might be kind of the best option for them long term in terms of them not having an offense around him.
Yeah, and I think most people know I'm not the biggest JJ McCarthy fan. I saw him as a first round quarterback. But I think I kind of agree with you. I don't think that's a bad take whatsoever, that JJ McCarthy may be the most immune to a bad situation. When you look at kind of like upside, I think a lot of these quarterbacks have some higher upside than potentially JJ McCarthy. But when it comes to kind of not being ruined, I think that's a good take, Chase. Not bad.
Yeah, thank you. And it's something I never really thought of until kind of just like now. I never thought like it was a super high possibility, but like I'm just seeing more and more that it can actually happen, and it does make sense. So if this pick happens, I'm not going to be like sitting there gasping big time at the draft. I'll be like, holy damn, I can't believe that it actually did happen. But I'm not going to be like doing backflips, somersaults, freaking out, not knowing how to handle myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that if Belichick was still here, then it might be an odds favorite that JJ McCarthy would go here, but different coaching scheme or coaching staff. We'll see how that all pans out. Would be exciting though. Now the Cardinals on the clock.
So this changes a lot here. Are we gonna try to incorporate trades at all?
I don't know. I mean,
it's hard to do, but there's no chance that this pick doesn't get traded for. Like somebody offers like everything in their mother to the Cardinals to get this pick, right? Like somebody has to.
Probably. But I say we play no trades so that you can take Drake May with your 6th pick with the Giants.
Okay, so that's gonna suck having to make a decision there. But in reality, here's what I think would happen. I think the Vikings would pay just about whatever price they have to go up to the Cardinals, pick at 4, and grab Drake May. Like they would give up both their first round picks this year, plus a first round pick next year, plus like a second round pick or something. Like I could see that very well being the case. And it probably makes sense for the Cardinals. Like obviously it would suck not having Marvin Harrison, but you can still potentially get, depending how the draft falls, Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze down there. It's not that impossible. So I think that would happen on draft day, but since we're not, counting that being the case, the easy pick here, slam dunk, Marvin Harrison, my number one player in the draft class. I think that the best receiver talent that I've seen in the draft in terms of me ever kind of doing this scouting. I think, minus injuries, it's just which is the case for everybody. Just going forward, just gonna preface this. If I say anything about this, it's always just not accounting for injuries. I do think he is basically bust proof. I don't really see a path for him not getting better and being talented and being a high end receiver. His stats just might not always be the greatest based on wherever the quarterback play is going to be. But I still think it's going to be hard for him playing a full season not to be at least 1,000-yard guy every year, even with the horrible quarterbacks, system. And even with that, like I still think he could be, an 120, 130 target guy who gets 1,600 yards every year.
Yeah, I mean, he's so good. He's the highest rated wide receiver I have since Jamar Chase. And obviously, I loved Garrett Wilson, but I mean, Marvin Harrison blows him out of the water. This kid is so good. And the Cardinals getting a really nice one there. Going to be real nice for fantasy as well to have him and Kyler Murray paired up. And now we move on to the 5th pick with the Los Angeles Chargers. And I had the Chargers in the locker room mock draft. So if you want to know where I went there, make sure to head over and check that out. But Chase, I'm going to make things really hard for you at pick 6. I'm going to go Brock Bowers here at number 5. I don't know if this is the pick that they should go. There's a lot of talk about Jim Harbaugh. He likes to run the rock. Brock Bowers, he's going to be a great weapon as well as a great blocker on the line. And this just puts a little bit more craziness in with that Giants pick because obviously the Giants could use quarterback. They could use wide receiver. And then, of course, you got other fantastic players out there as well with like Joe Alt and stuff.
I don't know if this is best case or worst case scenario for the Giants. This is horrible. This is a horrible decision to have to make.
The best part is they're going to screw it up if it happens in real life.
Oh, 100%. Whichever guy they take, which, the guy, whoever I take here, hopefully it's not them, but whichever guy they take is something's going to go wrong and they're going to flop. But, like, this is just horrible. I think I should be funny and just take, like Terry and Arnold or something. Like this is brutal, dude. Oh man. But I love the Bowers pick to the Chargers because it's so kind of like out there. But man, that would be a ton of fun, especially like with the amount of receivers they have out the door. They need an offensive weapon. And you kind of figure here it would be Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze. It's just kind of what general consensus is. But man, if it's Brock Bowers, that's awesome. Like. He will get used by what's his freaking name, Jim Harbaugh. Jeez,
Harbaugh.
Yeah, he'll get used by Jim Harbaugh if they take him with that capital. He's somebody that is going to utilize his best players, and he always does. So Bowers would end up being probably the highest targeted receiver in the NFL within a couple of years. Especially given the fact that kind of Kelsey would be out the door at that point. Like he could be a dog here, so that would be a ton of fun. I would love that pick. It's just all around because I am a Chargers fan. As like not like a fan, I guess, but like a supporter. So I think that'd be cool, and I think that'd be huge for Herbert.
Yeah, and I love Brock Bowers. This would hurt me a little bit, though. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be able to fall all the way down to 18 to the Bengals. But I've started to sour a little bit on the Chargers. Just a lot of talk about, Herbert better than Burrow. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh going over there. Not his biggest fan as an MSU alum. So I don't know. Just the Chargers have soured on me a little bit in the past couple of years, and especially this year. And so to see one of my favorite players in the class that would look so good in stripes go there would hurt me a little bit. But fantasy-wise, I mean, I've got Herbert. I'm going to be very excited to get my hands on Bowers if possible, so that would be a lot of fun.
All right, so with this pick here, I'm going to kind of take a similar approach that you just did with these guys. And it's going to be like a little mix of what I would do in terms of what I think might happen. I don't think you can move on from Daniel Jones after spending that money on him. Mm-hmm. I'm not like I'm somebody that like if you're investing that money into a player, especially into a quarterback, you have to give them a chance to do something. And even though I'm not a Daniel Jones guy, let's be honest, minus Saquon, who had some injury like struggles, he really doesn't have anything around him to even give him much of a chance. So I think they need to do him right and give him a chance and give him some weapons. And then if he fails, when it comes time to grab another quarterback, the weapons are already in place. So I think that's truly the best route to go here and kind of avoid Drake May. So if there's no trades in the first round by some miracle, Drake May is just going to keep on slipping here for a few picks. But with that being said, I would take Rome Odunze, but to me, it feels like they would take Malik Neighbors. So I'm going to go with Malik Neighbors.
Okay. Good pick there. I was just looking up Daniel Jones' contract as well because obviously you give a player a contract, you want to make sure you honor them, but at the same time, you got to look at that dead cap because there is potential you could get out of something easy and do what's best for the franchise. If they cut him this year, dead cap of about $70 million. So definitely don't want to be doing that. Next year, it's about 22. And then the final year of his contract would be about 11. So I think smart to kind of conserve that there, give him a little bit more weaponry. I agree with you. I like Romo Odunze better as well. But when we see them take like a Wan'Dale Robinson and still have PTSD from a Kenny Galladay, Malik Neighbors does make a little bit more sense to New York.
Yeah, it just feels like the pick no matter how everything falls. I mean, unless Marvin Harrison's there, I think that's kind of automatic. And I was watching a bunch of stuff on draft today, so that's all I've been doing today. And I've seen multiple things being like, oh, I take Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison. Shut up. Just shut up. Whoever is saying that, just shut up. I don't need to hear your opinions anymore. Like you're done. I'm sick and tired of it. It's not even a question.
100% agree with you. I do want to take a step back here real quick though, because who was the team that had some very odd rankings last year in the draft? And a lot of people thought they just absolutely bombed round one. Could they potentially be a team that likes Malik Neighbors over Marv?
No, the Lions like Marvin Harrison more.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Well, here on...
Stop trying to dig my team. At least my players want to be here.
I'm not trying to dig your team. I'm just saying, maybe they're Malik guys. But
no.
With your pick 7, the Tennessee Titans, look, their quarterback is a second round pick. It's not like they're heavily invested. And I think for that reason, it's an obvious pick to go Joe Alt here out of Notre Dame.
Oh, so close. That would be so funny, dude. That would have been absolute mayhem. No,
that'd be so fun.
They're giving Will Levis every chance that he can have success because I think Will Levis is never going to be a league burning quarterback, but I think you can have success with them if you have every other piece in place. But it is going to take having every other piece in place. And Joe Alt is just that dude. I think he's so talented. I really love his game, and I mean this is the guy that should be a 15-year starter who's looking at all pro nods year in and year out.
100%. Such a talented player, and when you have a quarterback like Will Levis, who isn't incredibly mobile, and last year, I think my grade for his pocket awareness was like a 25th percentile. Not great. Having a big, really talented blindside blocker like Joe Alt, I mean, that's going to be key for his success. So I think it is the right pick, but man, would it have been fun to go Drake May there. I can't lie.
It'd be hilarious. But now we're moving on to the Falcons, and who knows? Maybe the Falcons are mad at Kirk Cousins for potentially costing them some draft capital, and they want to go for quarterback.
Oh boy!
And for that reason, they are indeed going to take Latu with the 8th overall pick. This is finally the game of the year. They take a freaking edge. Like I feel like it's been mentioned for many years by experts, by myself. And I think this is finally the year. Latu is my number 1 edge in the class. I could see them potentially going with Turner or Verse if they like those two guys more, but I think Latu should be the guy that goes first, and it kind of fits what they're looking for. It just makes the most sense to me.
Yeah, I like the pick a lot. Latu, my number 2 edge, but him, Jared Verse, Dallas Turner, all first-round grades, all very close as well. And with Latu as my 2, I do like seeing him over the Dallas Turner pick that is pretty consensus at this point, who is my number 3 player. So nice pick there. And he's got a little bit of versatility too because of his size. Yeah. He can maybe play a little bit more inside with his hand in the dirt, play upright on the outside. I think it's a good pick for the Falcons.
Yeah, it's It's exactly what they need if they're going with an edge because, as you said, like it gives you a couple different options to use him in. Like he is just super talented, and like his whole profile, like there's not really too big of a flaw in his game. There's obviously room for improvement and just kind of taking things to the next level, but he's gonna be someone that should play every down for you, like from day one.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, with the Bears here back on the clock, I don't really want to do it because I took a wide receiver for the Bears at 9 last in the locker room podcast,
Don't
but
do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. I don't want to see him here.
I have to. Romo Dunze going to the Bears. I mean, I think if Joe Alt was there, I'd probably go Alt over Odunze for this team because Darnell Wright and Joe Alt, I mean, that would be just a nasty duo on the outside for many years to come to protect Caleb. But with him off the board, is Olu or Fuaga or Mims, are they going to, overtake the likes of a Romo Dunze when it comes to value? I don't know if they do. So that's why I'm going to go Rome.
No, it's valid. In my opinion, it's the right pick. It is, and it would make for a ridiculously lethal duo between him and Caleb Williams, and it's gonna leave somebody open in that offense. There's you have two top dogs with him and DJ Moore. Cole Kmet is an awesome tight end who I really like, and then out of the backfield, I mean, you've got DeAndre Swift, you've got Roshan Johnson, like they've got a lot there, and it would make it so it's a really hard offense to stop. It would 1,000% be the correct pick.
Yeah, and don't forget about Keenan Allen too. If he can stay healthy,
Of course, yeah.
I mean, you got a great pair of hands in Keenan Allen. You got one of the best jump ballers in college history in Romo Dunze, and then DJ Moore who can stretch the field a little bit, make some plays happen after the catch. I mean, that would be a very scary offense, and I think the Lions with a rebuilt defense and potentially adding more pieces in the draft, they definitely have to prepare for that because that is no longer the Justin Field-led Bears that we saw last year.
Yeah, which sucks. I would love to. I would love play. Let me play that team every year, the Lions, please.
Absolutely. All right, Jets on the clock. Who are we thinking?
I mean, this ends up falling out like pretty nicely for them. I think it would be fun. A lot of my mocks I've had Brock Bowers going here just because like it's just kind of I see him being more in that range, and I think it'd be a great fit for the Jets and great for Aaron Rodgers to have that weapon. Obviously, that's not the case because he's not available. The top three receivers are now gone, but it leaves two very talented offensive linemen for him to kind of have the pick of their litter from, and it's something that they can definitely use some help with. So I'm gonna go with the guy I prefer, Tylese Fuaga. Him and Ole Fashanu are pretty close to my rankings, but I've got Fuaga as my guy. I have him ranked a little bit higher, so I feel like I should give him the benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, and Fuaga, a fantastic player. Whether you're going him or really, I think one of the other three offensive tackles still available. I mean, I think you're getting a really solid player across the board there. So good pick. I am a little bit surprised that you didn't spite Aaron Rodgers and maybe take a Drake May here.
It was a possibility that I thought of. I should have probably talked about it a little more, but I honestly it is something because it'd be really funny. It'd be very funny for them to do that, have that happen to him again. But it just I feel like that they're too invested in Aaron Rodgers and they're going to do everything they can to try to help him have success. And if they can get him a top dog O lineman, then they're going to.
Yeah, and let's continue to bolster that NFC North, as we go Drake May, quarterback out of UNC over to Minnesota. And now this puts in the Lions division Caleb Williams, Jordan Love, and Drake May. The AFC for a long time has been the quarterback division or conference, I should say. If you have a division with those three quarterbacks on top of a Jared Goff, I mean, that's going to be scary.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, like you're like Drake May would be the worst quarterback in the division, and Drake May might be the best quarterback in a lot of divisions in the NFL.
Yeah,
like it's crazy. It would be horrible. I'd be livid. I would be angry. I'd be shaking, crying, throwing up at the draft. I'd be an absolute shambles.
I'm hoping it happens now. I just want to see you just puking.
Yeah, it would be absolutely terrible. But I do think they're going to try to if it goes 1, 2, 3 that way. I think they're giving up everything they can to trade Ford anyway and get him. So I think he's going to end up a Viking in this situation regardless. So the fact that they get him at 11, they get him at a lower dollar amount is even more annoying. But it's 1,000% the right pick.
Yeah, and we go quarterback here at 11. Will we see quarterback at 12 with the Denver Broncos on the clock?
So how you feeling about setting some records this year?
Oh, let's set some records, baby.
All right. Well, so the record for most quarterbacks in the first round is 6, and I don't remember what year it was, but the year that it happened, Dan Marino was the 6th quarterback that was taken and ended up becoming the best of the draft class. Well, this year is not going to be the 6th that ends with the best of the draft class. It's going to actually be the 4th that ends with the best of the draft class, and Michael Penix is going to lead the Broncos to the promised land. So Michael Penix at the 12th spot, he actually is my 12th ranked player in the draft class too, so goes right at value. And they need one desperately because what they have just it's not going to cut it by any means. So Penix immediately comes in, he takes that starting job, and I think he commands an offense that like there is some talent there. Like I think that there are tools to have success, and I think Sean Payton can actually he is a good coach if he has the right pieces around him. So I think Michael Penix could kind of come in and really help this Broncos team come back into playoff contention.
Yeah, and I think you meant 5th quarterback off the board there with Michael Penix. But
oh, my bad. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Regardless, Michael Penix, obviously a great player. We mentioned him a little bit earlier on when talking about Chase's My Guys. He could have a lot of success there, maybe revive Cortland Sutton's career a little bit. And I don't really know who else is over there right now because obviously Jerry Jeudy's gone. Tim Patrick, if he can stay healthy, maybe he can do a little bit of damage. And then, of course, Greg Dulcich as well. Could be a potential fantastic pick and a franchise-changing pick here at 12. And speaking of that, let's do it again here at 13. We're going to go with the Raiders taking Bo Nix out of Oregon. There's your 6 quarterbacks. Fun. 6 quarterbacks and 13 picks. Look, I think this quarterback class is so talented. Do I think all 6 are going to go in the first round? Potentially. Do I think they're all going to go in the top 13? Probably not, but I think the Raiders, they can't go with Aiden O'Connell. Let's be real here. Aiden O'Connell's not that guy. Bo Nix could potentially be one of those guys. I don't think he's going to be a top 5 player, but when you think a true point guard, true distributor, that's Bo Nix for you.
Yeah, and I actually think this is one of the better fits in the class as well. I think JJ well, let's preface it this way. Like Caleb Williams is a fit anywhere, so like we're gonna disregard him. I think J.J. McCarthy's probably the perfect fit, outside of the other quarterbacks for the Patriots, and Bo Nix might be the next best for the Raiders. It just feels right thinking about it. Like I can picture him in a Raiders uniform starting, 10, 15, 20 years, like potentially, 20 years is a lot, but like 10, 15 years, I think it's certainly attainable. It just feels right. Kind of alluding to the other show, spoiling a little bit of that. Apologies, but it is kind of like a Derek Carr with legs. Like I think it kind of really fits what they're looking for, and I would really like this. Like the way this whole quarterback landscape like panned out, I think everything makes a lot of sense. I think all 6 of these quarterback picks make a lot of sense, go into a lot of really good spots. And as much as I don't want to see 2 elite, young quarterbacks in the Lions division, I do hope it plays out this way. And, Bo Nix kind of end up with the Raiders at their 13th spot would just be icing on the cake. So I do really like the pick.
Yeah, and makes it a lot of fun, too. I mean, imagine the crowd if we get a J.J. McCarthy top 3 pick. We see a Brock Bowers go 5. We see 6 quarterbacks in the top 13 picks. I mean, the place would be going crazy, and that's exactly what you want when it comes to entertainment, and we know the NFL is the best entertainment on the planet. But, Chase, we've got the Saints here at number 14. What are we thinking?
I mean, biggest need is going to be offensive line. So why not go with, who's my best player left on the draft board at the moment, and probably on most people's, and Olu Fashanu. It seems kind of a slam dunk at this point. I mean, he's going to come in day one, every single team in the league be a starter on the outside, and it's going to be no different with the Saints.
Yeah, Olu, fantastic pass blocker, and to pair him and Trevor Penning of the future, I mean, you got 2 guys who are just monsters. I mean, the size between those 2 would be bonkers. Maybe not to the level of the Bengals with 6'8", 365 and 6'8", 340, but you're still looking at some absolute beasts on the outside there. So solid pick out of the Saints, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's like at this point, like some of these draft picks have because of the craziness that we've instilled, which I can honestly still see a lot of this happening. There's been a couple really easy slam dunks, like Joe Alt slam dunk, Roman Reigns slam dunk, Drake May slam dunk. Now Olaf Fashanu with like slam dunk. I mean, this is like there's been a ton of fun picks on top of a lot of easy slam dunk picks too. So I really this is one of the most fun drafts that I think I've like ever done in my history of mock drafting. This is
Hey,
great.
and we hope the people are having fun listening as well. We're having a good time here, and we're going to continue that with pick number 15, the Colts on the clock. Wide receiver, big need for him. However, playing a little bit of what we would do as well as what we think could happen. I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go DB because I'm not the biggest fan of the wide receivers left, at least not at this value. I think they're going to go the safest corner on the board, and that's going to be Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. I think wherever he plays, he's going to be at least solid right off the jump, and he could potentially be a true game breaker. And we talked about it last week in our cornerback episode. If he were to play on the inside, maybe a slot corner role, he could potentially be the best slot corner in the league.
Yeah, I think it's a very valid pick. It makes a ton of sense. Coming in at my number 2 corner in the class, I still have Cooper DeJean as my number 1, so I think he should probably be the guy that's taken. But if Terrion Arnold goes there, I'm not going to sit there, being like, oh, what a wrong choice, because he does fit, as you kind of said, like kind of all over defense. Could be a dominant slot corner, and I think it is just going to kind of help that Colts defense. Especially if the draft plays out this way. I saw there were some rumors that they might try to go up and get Brock Bowers. So if they're not going to do something like that, and then those top 3 receivers go the way they do, this seems like it could be a very very possible pick.
Absolutely. Well, the Seahawks on the clock now, and man, you're not having a ton of fun because we had the NFC North getting better this draft, and now you got to pick for the Seahawks, which may be the Lions' biggest rival outside their division.
Oh, they're the ops 100%. Can't stand them. And I think just to spite them, let me scroll down because
Oh,
I do
no.
this draft. I do this draft, like in hand on shout out to Pro Football Network for their free mock draft tool. It's super nice. So I do it on there so I can just have like a graphic to have available when we're done. And I think that they can get really good value with the 327th ranked player Mason Fairchild, the tight end out of Kansas. So that's who
Yes.
we're gonna go here.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah. In actuality, there's a lot of ways you can go here. Offensive line, especially interior, is a need. They could use a DB. I just I don't know. Just the way this kind of plays out. I wish that there was another offensive lineman that I really liked in this value, because I think it's going to be a little bit of a reach, not necessarily a absolutely horrendous reach, but I think it'll be a little bit of a reach to go with an interior guy here. But I still think I'm going to do it anyway. We're going to end up with Jackson Powers Johnson, someone that can play the center, can play the guard, whatever it's going to be. It's a very big need for the Seahawks on the inside, and if they're not going to go with the DB, I feel like they have to go all line here. So Jackson Powers Johnson it is.
I'm going to need you to stop because I think you had the Seahawks in the locker room podcast. I had the Jags in the locker room podcast. I desperately,
Yeah, that's right.
desperately wanted JPJ to the Jags and make the pick so easy. But 2 times in a row, sorry to spoil, but JPJ going a pick right before the Jags. Guy's a superstar. He's on my guy's list for a reason. I think he's going to be fantastic for the Seahawks for years to come if that is where he lands. When it comes to the Jags, now that the interior offensive line spot really dwindles, I don't have any more interior guys within my first round. We're looking more at edge and defensive back. I also don't think edge is necessarily worth it at this point. So I'm going to go with my number 1 corner. And I think, honestly, when we're looking at the cornerback class, maybe outside of Kool-Aid McKinstry, I feel like this corner fits the Jags the most and kind of their aura, and that's going to be Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And I think, if all the top 4 corners are there, I think all 4 would go into the Jags and have success. But I do kind of agree. Like Quinyon Mitchell, it just kind of feels like a Jags kind of guy. I would go DB here as well. Even with JPJ on the board, I still might consider DB, just because like I'm still a fan of JPJ, but not necessarily as high as you are. So I would still probably consider DB here. So I think Quinyon Mitchell's probably the right pick. It'd be between him and Cooper DeJean, but I think Quinyon Mitchell might fit more. So valid.
Appreciate that. Well, hey, we got the Bengals on the clock. Obviously, it's been a tough day for me, a tough episode talking about what's happened so far. So let's make Mike smile a little bit here.
Well, again, I wanna not make you smile and like just really irritate you and go with somebody else. But
Hello, Bozo.
but I mean the way this falls, like I don't see how they don't take. I mean I can't. Let's pump the brakes here. In a logical world, I don't see how they don't take one of the top two, defensive linemen, like interior in this class. And we're gonna go with the guy that's both our number one, Byron Murphy.
Yeah, I mean, love the pick. How can you not? Byron Murphy, Johnny Newton, both of them, I think are going to be absolute studs on the inside for many years to come. And the Bengals, for a long time, they were built from that inside. Geno Atkins was an absolute dominant force for them for a decade. Then you had DJ Reader playing fantastic for them as well. He heads over to Detroit. So we need to find that replacement. Byron Murphy could potentially be that. And Byron Murphy, a little bit more pass rush utility as well compared to DJ Reader. But it would be very exciting, and I'd be very excited for that young defensive line for the years to come.
Yeah, I think Byron Murphy's awesome. It's if he went to the next pick is the Rams, and like say the Rams took him, everyone would be like, oh, we're gonna get some Aaron Donald flashbacks type things because like he does everything really well. Like he's obviously not Aaron Donald, but like he does everything really well on the D line, and just watching him rush a passer from the interior, watching guys have success do that, it's probably one of the most fun things that I can see on a defense. To be honest, like I love watching interior guys be dominant on the pass. So Byron Murphy is a really entertaining guy to watch, and I think it would be just a home run for the Bengals.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the Rams on the clock, like you just mentioned, we could see some potential flashbacks. Oh, Aaron Donald potentially with Johnny Newton, but that's not going to be the case. I'm actually going to go on the offensive side and going to beef up that offensive line a little bit. So I'm going to go Amarius Mims out of Georgia. He's my next best offensive tackle. I think you could even potentially see some Troy Fatanu in play here because obviously he has a little bit more versatility. Could play inside at that guard position, could potentially play tackle as well. But when I'm thinking of my best available offensive lineman, it's going to be Amarius Mims. That's who the Rams are taking here at 19.
Yeah, I've got one guy in front of Marius Mims. I would have also went offensive tackle at this pick. The one other guy is going to be mentioned here in a second, so I'll wait to discuss too much about him. But I will tell you the one other guy is not Troy Fautanu because I'm really not that big of a fan. I still think he's someone that I have as a day two guy. I think he could be a late second, early third. I think that's where his value should be. Or I think he can have success in the NFL, but I don't ever see him as like a franchise O-line guy. So I think there's other ways to go. I think Amarius Mims has the upside to be that kind of guy. I think the next guy I'm going to talk about has the upside to do that as well. So those would be the correct picks. So if anybody takes Troy Fautanu, especially early on in the first round, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually have Troy Fatanu graded as a guard rather than an offensive tackle. I think he just doesn't have enough length to be on the outside. Kind of reminds me a little bit of a Jonah Williams, who the Bengals took from Alabama a couple of years back. I think he suits best on the inside, and I have him as a second round grade in the inside or on the inside. So I would agree. I don't think he necessarily should go this high. Wouldn't shock me, though, if a team likes the versatility and does decide to take a first round pick on him.
Yeah, and if I grade him as an interior guy, he might go up a little bit because like I do grade him as an offensive tackle, and I kind of hate on him a little bit for that. So maybe if I change some things up, it'd be it'd be more in that boat. But again, regardless, it still wouldn't be enough for me to say, hey, you should take a shot on him in the first round.
Right, absolutely. Well, Chase, scroll back down to 367. We got the Steelers on the clock.
It's hilarious because in this mock draft, I actually have the Steelers trading with the Chicago Bears, and they're getting Caleb Williams for Justin Fields again. So they're going to kind of do a flop of quarterbacks.
That's insane.
No, but so they obviously have Justin Fields in the room. They have Russell Wilson. I don't think I think the right move here is just do everything you can to offer the support for both these guys, and I think there's enough weapons there at receiver, tight end, and running back. Like they're obviously could improve all of those, but I still think there's enough there where they don't need to make a panic pick and maybe reach a little bit down some people's draft boards. So I would kind of beef up at O-line. My next highest rated offensive lineman is J.C. Latham, a guy that I do like a lot. He's my 14th ranked player in the draft class, so he's going to end up here with the Steelers.
Yeah, and I think J.C. Latham has a lot of potential, has a really nice ceiling on him. I mean, his hands are already impeccable. If he gets a grasp of you, it's going to be a bad day for you. But I also think J.C. Latham probably has the sloppiest feet of the top 5 offensive tackles that we've talked about so far. And so thinking about a Bengals pass rusher going up against him and possibly being able to exploit him, it makes me really happy. And then I realize, oh, he just demanded a trade.
Yeah, so you're gonna have nobody get to the quarterback anyway. So
Yeah, so I'm kind of sad just thinking about this pick because J.C. Latham could potentially turn into a fantastic player for the Steelers. And, well, we would really need Miles Murphy, Joseph Asai, and Byron Murphy to step up if we want to get some pressure on Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, whoever's going to be the starter there.
it'll be Russell Wilson this year and just Fields next year.
Are the Steelers feeling dangerous? Take that as a yes.
What do they call? Like, so they have Broncos country. Do the Steelers have anything?
I don't know. I hate them, so I don't really pay attention to them.
I want to see if I can come up with some other things instead of "Let's Ride," but
okay.
Let's steal country. Let's mine.
Let's mine. There you go. All right. Well, let's get off this stupidity. Let's head over to the Miami Dolphins, and we've got a buddy out there who likes the Miami Dolphins a little bit, and he was big time bummed that Christian Wilkins left the Miami Dolphins. So we're going to give him the replacement, bring in Johnny Newton out of Illinois. We already talked about him a little bit when talking about Byron Murphy. These guys are both fantastic on the interior. Johnny Newton probably not going to have that same impact that Christian Wilkins had, at least not on day one. But in 3-4 years, could he potentially replace some of that production Christian Wilkins as, leaving now? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, 100% agree. I really like that pick. It's not something that, when I've done mocks, I've really done a ton of, to be honest, for whatever reason. But thinking about it, it does make a lot of sense. A lot of for reasons what you just said, get a Christian Wilkins replacement. And Johnny Newton is exciting. He does have that upside, and I think he can come in and make that kind of day one impact. So I can definitely rock with the pick. I've been seeing a lot about them potentially going receiver here, though. So how would you think if Brian Thomas is still available and the Dolphins went there? What would your thoughts be on that one?
Well, you kind of know my thoughts on Brian Thomas as a whole, but I think it would make sense for what Mike McDaniel wants to do. I mean, his offense is strictly speed. I even heard, maybe I saw something today about Xavier Worthy potentially jumping to the Dolphins, which I think that would definitely be a reach. I've got Brian Thomas as my 7th receiver. Xavier Worthy, I think, is like my 9th or 10th. So Brian Thomas, the better pick here. And I think that's pretty consensus across the board, even though I'm lower on him. It would be a lot of fun. But looking at the value of how I see these players, I think if Johnny Newton's there, it's a slam dunk.
Yeah, it's fair. I can rock with it.
All right, Eagles on the clock at pick 22. Who we feeling?
I mean, DB is probably their biggest need. Like, rather that be corner or safety, and so might as well get the guy who can play both. Who I don't want to go to the Eagles, but he's going to. Cooper DeJean, my top-rated defensive back in the class. He's a corner. He's really good, and he's just going to make that stupid Eagles defense even better.
Yeah, and I've seen, I think it was Cooper DeJean has only had like 6 interviews with teams or 30-day visits, whatever it is. And
top 30 visits.
Yeah, the Eagles were one of them. So it could very potentially be the actual case. And you know what? We're thinking we're doing a mix of predictive and what we would do, but honestly, this is feeling like a pretty realistic mock so far.
I mean, in terms of like landing spots, in terms of teams, yeah, but like you're making fall to 11.
I mean, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, he is not.
Yeah. All right. Well, your Vikings are back on the clock. They could use a couple pieces here. I'm not sure why tight ends listed as a need here on this mock draft website. I tend to disagree. TJ Hawkinson's a a decent
Yeah,
little player, but
I definitely disagree.
but what do I know? Troy Fatanu could potentially be an option here. Obviously, they could use some help on the offensive line. He's a little bit more versatile, but I'm going to go to DB here. I'm going to go Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. He's my number 3 corner. I think this is a guy who can play outside. He's very long. He's got incredible speed and an incredible back pedal. He needs to work on some things, but he's a young player, and I think his ceiling is very high.
Yeah, I think they're going DB here as well, like 100%. So I think that's fair. I have one more guy ranked higher. Kool-Aid McKintry's still on the board, and I do have Kool-Aid ranked higher. So probably go him because I think he's pretty, scheme versatile. But regardless, I think DB just makes too much sense unless they're really afraid that who knows, maybe Just Jefferson's not going to come back. With Brian Thomas on the board, it kind of could be the pick there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now this leaves me with the boys, and we know who owns the Cowboys. We know who their quasi GM is. I mean, Jerry Jones, he likes to make a splash.
He does.
And I know there's a couple ways to make a splash here.
Yeah.
Currently, they don't have anybody who would be carrying the ball.
Oh. I was thinking maybe, there's not a lot of people behind CeeDee Lamb and there's a speedy kid out of Texas, but okay. I like this.
You also beat me to the punch there. Because I was going to say they also are lacking someone to catch the ball a little bit.
Oh?
So, what does Chase do? This is a really good question.
Just I'll erase that part. I won't actually, but I'll erase it. Get to your punchline.
He's going to do it. He's not the highest rated running back on his draft board, but I don't know. Let's keep him in the state of Dallas, or the state of Dallas, in the state of Texas. Let's give him Jonathan Brooks. Why not? I think it would be kind of a weird move, but it seems like a Jerry Jones kind of move. The running backs, the rankings are all all the way different between different experts, and I've seen Jonathan Brooks be some people's number 1. I've seen him be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've seen him all over the place, and I think it would be between him and Trey Benson if they're going a first round running back. And let's just be fun and let's just go with the Texas boy.
Wow, I love the pick, and Jonathan Brooks, he comes in as my running back 2, but him and Trey Benson pretty neck and neck as the top 2 guys in my eyes. And to see Jonathan Brooks go in the first round would be crazy, but it makes a lot of sense. Jerry Jones, he's kind of crazy, and then when you look at that running back room over in Dallas, it is putrid, and they haven't had a running back room that looked that bad in many, many years before Zeke Elliott. So I think it makes a lot of sense. It would be a lot of fun. I think Jonathan Brooks immediately jumps into first-round conversation when it comes to dynasty drafts.
Oh, I mean, he would be the highest drafted running back, obviously, and single QB, the only guys drafted above him. And based on this, I honestly would probably be Marvin Harrison and Romo Dunze. I think I would take him over Brock Bowers at the point. I'd take him over Malik Neighbors at that point.
Yeah, where did Malik Neighbors go again? The Giants? Ooh, yeah, I don't love that. I might take Brock Bowers. But yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, the guy's going to get drafted very high if that's the case.
Yeah, which and it would be fun. I do want them to take a running back just because I think they're the team that's most set up to take a running back in the first round. So I think it could be kind of fun.
Yeah, for sure. All right, well, the Packers on the clock, another one of your favorites, and this is where I kind of got to be a little bit more realistic than what would I do.
Real quick. I just want to point out, you're going to be drafting the whole NFC North.
That's pretty solid, isn't it?
Which is just so dumb. It's so annoying.
I'm just making all the teams around the Lions better, and I'll get you guys Graham Barton. Don't worry.
Okay.
But the Packers here on the board, obviously they could use some offensive line help, some help on the interior, on the defensive side. However, I don't really have anyone that meets that value currently. We talked about Troy Fatanu. He potentially could be in play here, but when I'm thinking realistically, a lot of people love Dallas Turner, and to see him drop all the way down here to 25, even though I like Jared Verse a little bit better, I think the world would just be screaming Dallas Turner at this point. So that's who I'm going to go out of Alabama.
Yeah, I think that's pretty valid. And to be quite honest, I was probably going to take him at my next pick here that I have with the Buccaneers, because there's no reason that he should have fallen this far. In all actuality, based on where kind of things are being said. But in terms of like where guys have been drafted so far and what team needs are, I could see a path to it happening. But
Yeah.
I think that if this happens, someone probably, at least with how much it sounds like people love him, somebody probably trades up and gets him a little bit earlier on in the draft. But based on the way the rest of this falls, I think it's a nice value.
For sure. And I kind of wonder if Dallas Turner does go 8 in the real draft, where does Leatu Latu go? Where does Jared Verse go? I think Jared Verse, he pretty widely is seen as the lesser of the three, even though I think you and I both disagree.
Yep.
But it seems like he's dropping end of the first round into the second round. Whereas Leatu Latu, a lot of people like him, and for good reason. So does he potentially find himself at like a pick 17 or a pick 19 or something? Or does he fall this far similarly to how Dallas Turner did in our mock?
No, in all actuality, like how things going to play out, I don't think either one of these guys fall that far. I mean, just based on how, where things played out here, if we had Dallas Turner go in that 8 spot instead of Latu, I think a team like the Saints, even though they need offensive line, might take him just because he's too talented. Or I think that the Colts, the Seahawks, the Jags are all in that kind of same boat too, just because he's too talented.
Yeah, that would scare me a little bit, though, because they obviously took Marcus Davenport, and I think it was at 13 or 14 a couple of years ago, and Marcus Davenport, very long, similarly to Leatu Latu. I would just be a little fearful because I want Leatu Latu to become a little bit more of a player than Davenport was, but
Agreed.
regardless, very true. Let's get to pick 26. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
So as I just mentioned, I would have put Dallas Turner here. I think the Bucks especially need an edge rusher, and Jared Verse is still on the board, who I have higher anyway. So might as well have Jared Verse end up as a Buck. Makes a ton of sense. I kind of yelled at you in the locker room pod for a pick that you made.
Yep.
You guys can go listen to that. There it was a pretty fun dialogue, but I think Verse makes a lot of sense here.
Yeah, 100% agree. And Jared Verse is my number one edge in the class. I think there's just a lot of things he does differently than some of these other guys. He's not going to win by pure speed like we see out of Dallas Turner. He's going to change things up a little bit, take weird angles. I mentioned in our defensive end or our edge rankings that he reminds me a little bit of Detroit's own Aiden Hutchinson with some of the ways that he plays. So very good pick for the Bucs there. And we move on now to pick, 27?
Yep.
Where did my mock go? There it is. There's the mock. Pick 27. We got the Cardinals on the clock. They just went wide receiver earlier on and Marvin Harrison Jr. So looking on the board, I think we address outside again, but on the defensive side of the ball, let's go Kool-Aid McKinstry out of Alabama. Yeah, headed over to the Cardinals.
Dude, you don't understand how mad I would be if the Lions came that close to securing one of my top 4 corners just to get robbed. Like that 2 picks away. I would be livid, but this is 1,000% the pick I would make as well, because that's their next biggest need outside of receiver. And they obviously get Marvin Harrison up top, and maybe they want to, double up and have Marquise Brown become a wide receiver 3 or something. I don't know. But like it makes too much sense. I would be extremely upset. And at this point, honestly, this is a path where I could eventually see the Lions trading out if something like this happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're looking at the board right now, I mean, you're thinking corner, obviously their biggest need, but you could potentially see a little bit more play when it comes to maybe the edge class. Well, your top 3 edges are gone. Your top 5 defensive backs are gone. At least my top 5 defensive backs are gone. And so now we're looking and we're thinking, oh boy, is there anyone we want to take here, or do we feel comfortable dropping down?
Yeah, I really want them to make a first round pick. I really want the Lions to make a first round pick, but based on who's on the board, I don't know what makes sense. Like really, where you can just get more value. So like,
Right. Absolutely.
God, like I'm just kind of scrolling through my stuff here now, and like really, I mean, yeah, like nothing makes sense for
Yeah.
in my draft board. Ah!
Well, let's go on to the Bills here at pick 28. What are we feeling? Are we going to get some more help for Josh Allen, or do we think that Khalil Shakir is enough?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is way too easy of a pick. Like Brian Thomas isn't going to be available at pick 28, and if he is, I mean, Josh Allen will probably make the call himself before Brandon Bean can even get to the phone. Get him a weapon. I do think Brian Thomas is a lot better than you do. He's my 13th ranked player in the draft class. I've got a lot of love for him. I think he can be a number one receiver in the NFL. And obviously, the Bills desperately need that when Khalil Shakir is like basically all they have in terms of someone I think with any sort of upside and potential for next year. So get Brian Thomas, come in immediately as the number one receiver, come in as someone who's going to automatically be in contention for Rookie of the Year solely because he's going to get so many targets.
Yeah, for sure. And in the other show, you took a different player that I actually like better than Brian Thomas. But when I think of the Bills and their situation, I think Brian Thomas works really well here. Obviously, he can be a big player, and he's also got some consistency to catch the little things and make plays for Josh Allen. So I think when you're looking for a prototypical player you want Josh Allen to be paired up with, I think Brian Thomas makes a lot of sense here, even though I am a little bit lower than most people on him. All right, Chase, here's the
Yeah.
moment. Here is the moment of truth. Whew, the Lions on the clock. What are you doing? What do you want me to do? I'm not going to do it, but what do you want me to do? And that's the problem here is we're not doing trades, so we won't be trading out. But I'm looking at two players here that I think could be a lot of fun. At least one that could be a lot of fun, and another that I feel like fits Dan Campbell. But
I mean, I'd probably say one of my next two edges, like in terms of Austin Booker or Deshaun Isaac, like two guys that are, like in my guys, like I feel like that would be the next player that I'd be really happy with. Like it would be cool. I like Troy Franklin obviously more than you do, so like it'd be cool to see Troy Franklin or get Lad McConkey, but there's obviously just not a need for it. So I guess I would prefer one of those two edges over anything else, like with what's on the board. I don't
yeah,
know.
well, I won't be doing that. I won't be going to your edges there because my next edge is Chop Robinson. I don't personally have him this high.
No. It doesn't. I don't think it fits Lions anyway.
Right. When I think about it, and I know you're gonna hate this because we've talked about him a couple times, but Troy Fatanu, he could move in the guard and be a really talented guard there on that Lions offensive line, and that Lions offensive line could continue to be absolutely dominant for years to come. But I'm not gonna do that. You got a guy who can stretch the field in Jamison Williams. You got a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown that really can do everything. But I mean, him playing in the slot, being that reliable safety blanket that he's been for many, many years, fantastic. But who could you potentially have on the outside, on the other side of Jamison Williams? I'm going to go my number 4 wide receiver in this class, A.D. Mitchell out of Texas. I think he could be a big-time playmaker for the Lions. Jamison Williams, not necessarily lived up to the hype quite yet. Obviously had to deal with some suspension and injury issues. But this year, we could see him potentially grow even more. And if that's the case, where we've got Amon-Ra and Jamison clicking, A.D. Mitchell is going to be open because you can't cover all three guys, plus Jahmyr Gibbs, plus Sam Laporta, plus David Montgomery. This offense would be electric.
Yeah, if anything's gonna happen, that's one of the picks that I would genuinely be happy with. Again, even though I have two receivers above him, I think A.D. Mitchell's probably the guy that makes the most sense. So I would be happy in terms of pure talent. And if the corners are off the board and the Lions are standing pat, and even in general, like their general approach is they're going to take the player that they feel is just the best football player. They're not going to draft solely for need. And he's definitely in the conversation at this point for the best football player left. So it'd be a fun pick. It would leave me leaving not too upset, by any means, coming out of the NFL draft. So I could live with it.
And it's just so hard because when your expectations are one of those top 5 corners or one of those top 3 edges and none of them make it, it is very difficult to kind of muster up the courage to enjoy whatever pick may come down the line. But sometimes things don't work out to the best of their ability, especially when you're picking down here at like 29, 30, 31, like the Bengals did a couple years ago. And, when your team's that good, it's tough to get the best players in the draft.
Yeah, it's cool to say that. That's the one benefit about
Absolutely.
this is that the Lions actually had playoff success in my life. Sometimes it felt like it was never going to happen.
Yeah. It's a fun time to be a Lions fan, that's for sure. But we'll move off of them, Chase, because who cares? Let's go over to the Baltimore Ravens here at pick 30.
And guess what, Mike? I drafted the whole AFC North.
Hey, how about it?
It has picks at least. And unfortunately for you,
okay,
we're just going to make this Ravens offense even better.
Oh, boy.
I mean,
don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Right now,
do your guy.
I don't know what you're considering. I probably will do my guy.
Okay, good.
Unless I don't know which guy, but so you've got Zay Flowers, very talented. Rashad Bateman just got an extension, also someone I think can still have success, even though he's kind of been in disappointment.
Yeah,
I still think he's just a very good receiver that it just might take him a little bit more time. I'm really rooting for it. But Nelson Aguilar in the slot, I don't know about that.
No, they don't need a slot. They can put Zay in the slot. Do the other guy.
You know who's dominant in the slot?
Troy Franklin. He's so dominant in the slot.
Ladd McConkey, who would dominate the Ravens offense. Dude,
no.
Like Lamar Jackson might somehow throw for 5,000 yards and run for 1,200 next year if this happens. Like that offense would immediately, obviously, the two receivers I just said, and Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, would get Ladd McConkey thrown into it. They already obviously have Lamar at quarterback. They signed Derrick Henry at running back, and then they have Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely at tight end. Like it's stupid. It's unstoppable. I legitimately don't know how you would stop that offense.
Meet them in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's about it. like that team might go 17-0 in the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, it's 15-2 because they'll lose both against the Bengals. But yeah, I mean, fantastic team there. I don't like the pick. Ladd McConkey should not go to a division rival. Maybe we can send him to the Packers or something in real life.
No.
But realistically, it does make a ton of sense for them, and it would be painful for me. That's for sure.
Dude, like it would make the Ravens would be much watched football every single week. Like they would deserve to be in prime time almost every single week because it would they would do everything that the NFL wants in terms of having a dominant, versatile offense. I mean, it would be really good, but it would definitely suck for Bengals fans and diehard Ladd McConkey fans just because I don't want to see the Ravens get another talented guy because I think it kind of limits his upside a little bit. I'd rather see him go maybe somewhere else.
Yeah, and Ladd McConkey would be reuniting with Todd Monken, the former offensive coordinator for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Yeah.
So it would be cool. And I got to say that Ravens offense would be a lot more fun to watch. Almost every single premier game or live game, whatever it is. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Prime time, you're saying?
Yeah. Primetime game. Unlike the Eagles and the Chiefs last year. I mean, they had a lot of games on primetime and they weren't as fun as what could be the Ravens in this year.
Yeah, valid.
All right, well, the last two picks, we've got the 49ers, and Chase will finish it off with the Chiefs. Look, I'm not going to keep teasing you. I've been doing it all episode long. I'm going to go Troy Fautanu out of Washington here. This is a guy, I've mentioned it many times. He's versatile, inside or outside. The 49ers could use some help on both the inside and the outside, so just bring in Troy Fautanu, play him wherever you think he fits best.
Yeah, at this point, it makes sense. Even though he's someone I do have lower, I have him as a late second round, early third round type guy. It does make sense. So I could see it happening. A lot of mocks I do. I also have him taking Darius Robinson because he offers that versatility on the D line. So I could see that being a path too. But Fautanu does make sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Final pick here. But before we get to it, I want to say very quickly, JJ McCarthy on the Rich Eisen show says the one team he spent the most time with throughout this draft process, number 6, the New York Giants.
Boy, that would be a funny one.
I know, right? Because they're just printing in Daniel Jones 2.0, and it's like, what are you doing?
Better Daniel Jones,
Oh,
but
okay.
that would do that. That would be super funny. That they shouldn't do that. They can't do that. They can't do that.
Yeah.
Like they're gonna live in that just absolute like terrible, bad football team hell if they just take another quarterback here. They have to put other weapons in place.
Yeah, absolutely. But if he doesn't go 3, be on the lookout for number 6, definitely. But Chase, let's wrap up this mock. Let's wrap up this episode. We got the Super Bowl winning back-to-back best team in the world, an absolute dynasty. This is all hurting me to say, the Kansas City Chiefs.
There's 2 guys here.
Okay.
Both guys catch the ball.
And
I both guys kind of do the same thing in different ways. And
okay.
I have one ranked higher than the other, so I
Ricky
feel more
Pearsall.
inclined to go his route.
Okay.
What do you say?
Ricky Pearsall?
Yeah, definitely.
Dub.
So I feel more inclined to go his route. But it does remind you a little bit of MVS, and it kind of failed a little bit with the Chiefs. So as much as I love Troy Franklin, I think he can have success. The drops are a little bit of a question, and they need somebody at receiver who can kind of change play, but I think has a little bit steadier hands, even if he isn't as, offensively gifted like Troy Franklin is, in my opinion. But Xavier Worthy to the Chiefs could be, a Tyreek Hill light type of player and be a lot of fun for fantasy football. It'd be another guy that just immediately jumps into, a high first round pick. Another guy who's in the running for offensive rookie of the year just because he got Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. So I think it's got to be a receiver no matter who it's there. And they just kind of go with whoever they have highest on their board.
Yeah, Xavier Worthy would be a lot of fun. Obviously, the game-breaking speed, 4.21 40-yard dash. He plays extremely quick as well on tape. So if you can just get this guy open downfield, Mahomes has the arm talent to say, screw it, Worthy's down there somewhere, and just chuck it up. So nice pick there. It would be a lot of fun. I think it would be very scary for AFC teams thinking how much terror Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes caused for 2 or 3 years, whatever it was, because Xavier Worthy could potentially meet that as well.
Yeah, I think he 100% could. And, it's not going to be Tyreek Hill, pushing 2,000 yards, anything like that, like ceiling. But it's a guy that, if you need a 60-yard play, it's going to be on the table every single snap. It's something you just have to be worried about. You have to have a DB, ready deep, to just try to avoid that play happening. And it's going to change how defenses play and make it a lot harder to defend Patrick Mahomes with how hard it already is.
Absolutely. Well, there it is for our mock draft, and there it is for our draft coverage this year. Chase, any final words about kind of the draft, the process, anything you want to say to the fans before we sign off for the end of our draft content?
So obviously this mock draft we did was kind of all over the place. It's going to be a bit untraditional compared to some things you see. But at the end of the day, I see paths to all of this being realistic. And if this does somehow happen, I mean, I'm expecting a call from ESPN that we're just going to be full-time analysts. I don't see how, but I am super excited for this draft class. This mock draft was the most fun I've had in a podcast in a really long time, and it's got me even more excited for a draft, for the draft tomorrow. It's as we mentioned, even though there might not be the the deepest first round, there is still a lot of really strong talent, and there's a lot of really good values that are going to be had. So I am incredibly excited.
100%. Well, if you stuck with us all the way through, we do apologize for a long episode, an hour and 40 minutes coming up on, but it was a good way to cap off our draft content. We had a lot of fun. There was some grinding, some struggling when it came to watching these players, but it capped off with such a fun mock draft. We hope you enjoyed. If you want to stay up to date with all that we do, you can follow us on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. That's again on Twitter at WNP Sports Pod. If you want to stay up to date elsewhere, we have our Facebook and our Instagram down in the comments below and in the description. If you're listening on YouTube, if you could please give us a like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell to turn on notifications. We'd absolutely love you for it. And let us know down in the comments, what was your favorite pick? What was a pick that you think we got terribly wrong? let us know down in the comments below. And if you are listening on a podcast platform, if you could please give us a follow and a 5-star rating, we'd really appreciate it. Thanks so much for coming out. And as always, we're not professionals.